This is a 2023 Tesla Model X long range. We've had this car now officially for 2 years, and in that 2 years, we have taken an absolute bath on the value of this car. That absolutely sucks, of course, but there's a lot of things about this car that are good and some things that are not so good. And today we're going to cover all of that because this very well might be the very last day we own this Model X. So make sure you stick around to the end. I'm going to share everything with you. Not going to hold anything back and share with you why you may or may not want to consider a Tesla Model X. We got this car in March of 2023, and we got it a bit of a deal, a little bit of a discount, and that was great at the time. You see, this Model X right here had actually come down about $20,000 in price at the time of our purchase. The problem, I didn't think there would be another $20,000 in price reduction since, and that's exactly what happened. Not only did it go down another $20,000, but by doing so, it actually brought this car into tax credit eligibility. Now you had to get the base trim, the base model, no additional options to get that tax credit qualification. Nonetheless, if you added full self-driving for most of the last year, you could get one paid option for free, meaning you could get a $6,500 option of the 6-seat configuration like we have, go with the base color, the base wheels, and you would have spent about $27,000 less than what we did on this car. And that is a big issue. And over the last couple of years, a lot of Tesla owners have, unfortunately, been taken for a ride on the value of their vehicles. Teslas did peak somewhere around 2021, 2022 in price. And since then, prices have continued to come down, which is generally a good thing. With new technology, it's no surprise that prices are going to come down. This is natural. The technology is advancing so quickly and the enhancements are happening so fast that the cost efficiencies of these vehicles continue to accelerate. And that is a great thing for adoption of electric vehicles. It's not such a great thing when you're an early adopter. And the higher the price, the more depreciation. In this case, if everything goes through tomorrow, I'm going to have lost about 50% value in 2 years and 30,000 miles. We're going to come back to all the details on price, how much value I've lost, how much I've spent on this car. But first, let's break down the last 30,000 miles and what that's looked like. First, let's talk about what the last 30,000 miles have been like. It's been a pretty good 30,000 miles. And although we started off with some hiccups, it's been pretty event-free for the last couple of years. Let's start with 29,546 miles as it sits right now. And we've consumed 10,255 kilowatt hours to do that, averaging 347 watt-hour per mile. Real quick, I want to show you how that compares to our Model Y, which has 75,000 miles. Our Model Y has averaged 313 watt-hour per mile over its life. The reason I bring that up is because this car, as it sits right now with the 22-inch wheels, is rated at 330 miles of range. Our Model Y with the 20-inch wheels was rated at 318 miles of range. In fact, that represents about 4% more range in this car rated than in our Model Y. But there's a catch, and the catch is the fact that this Model X actually, although it does consume more energy on the highway, the real-world range on this car, even though it's rated a little bit higher than the Y, is a lot better on range than our Model Y is. I'm going to break this down into rudimentary numbers to kind of give you an idea of what exactly I'm talking about. Because although this car is rated at about 4% more range, we're actually seeing quite a bit more than that in real-world driving. There's no perfect way to do this, so I'm going to go based on the basics here. This Model X has a 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack in it. Our Model Y has an 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack in it. That's a 22% larger battery pack in this Model X than in the Model Y. If we take that 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack in the Model Y, divide it by our 313 watt-hour per mile, we get an estimated range of something like 262 miles of real world range. In the Model Y at 100 kilowatt hours at 347 watt hour per mile, we get more like 288 miles of range. And that represents 10% more range in real world, even though it's only rated 4% better. So even though it's rated 12 miles higher, it's actually more like double that, 26 miles, in fact, of more real world range on a full charge than the Model Y. That's a big deal when it comes to road trips. And it doesn't just stop there. It actually comes with charging as well. Although the Model Y does have decent charging, this Model X does even better. And that's even with the smaller footprint, older size battery. That's because some enhancements were made to that battery, specifically with cooling and some of the chemistry when they did the refresh. Because of that, I can charge from 11% to 33% at the full 250 kilowatts when I'm road tripping. I cannot do anything close to that in the Model Y. And that means I'm actually getting more real world range per minute charging than I am in the Model Y. I bring this up because I want to identify one thing that's missing in most of these range discussions, and it's the fact that real world range in these Teslas is different based on the model. Now, that has all changed over the last few years, and Tesla's estimated range is based on a new cycle from the EPA, and we're getting much better range in real world compared to what these things are rated for. But this Model X, although is bigger, heavier, has a bigger battery. And in real world, on the highway, this thing goes much farther than the Model Y, even more so than what the rated range would suggest in the difference between the two cars. But looking at this car over the last couple of years, I have all the charging stats, and here's what it looks like. Essentially, this car has charged at home 76% of the time, a little over 20% of its time on supercharging, and then about 2-3% of its time has been done with random chargers, so free chargers at hotels, things like that where it wasn't a cost. When we break that down, we're talking 9,000 kilowatt hours on home charging at 13 cents a kilowatt hour, or $1,180. For supercharging, 2,591 kilowatt hours, or about $930 in charging at 36 cents a kilowatt hour. And then for the free charging, about 310 kilowatt hours, of course, zero. Total cost to charge this over the life of this car has been $2,113.67. That does, of course, come from almost 12,000 kilowatt hours of energy. But wait a minute, the car says it's consumed 10,255. That is correct. This 84% of that nearly 12,000 kilowatt hours is because there is loss in the charging process. So we're actually going to consume more during the charging cycle than what we're actually going to use while actually powering the vehicle down the road. So there is going to be, in this case, 16% of additional energy that's not factored into what the screen is calculating. That all comes to about 7 cents per mile, which is pretty incredible because when we look at a comparable car like the Audi Q7, like I had previously, this is a 22 mile per gallon vehicle, comparable in size, comparable in luxury features. That car, however, at 22 miles per gallon premium gas, looking at the average premium gas price over the last couple of years, that would have cost $5,486.74, or about 19 cents a mile just in fuel in that, not counting any of the maintenance. That is a huge difference, more than twice the price, 2.5 times the cost just in fuel to operate an Audi Q7 versus this Tesla Model X on electricity. In this real world example, that $3,373 comes out to about $1,685 per year of real savings versus having a gas Audi Q7. That is huge. $1,500, $2,000 a year in true savings just on the fuel. Forget the maintenance for a minute. That's one of the areas where electric vehicles continue to shine and continue to absolutely change the game, why you should probably consider an electric vehicle. That's just in this category. There's even larger vehicles that cost savings is even bigger. But that can also go the other way depending on what charging infrastructure you have around you and what your electricity rates are in comparison to the gas rates you have in that same area. As you could probably tell when I opened this video up, the hardest pill to swallow with this car has been the price changes. When I bought this car, it started at $99,990. Today, that same car starts at $84,990. That is a huge price difference between the two. And it doesn't just stop there. Until recently, it was actually $79,990 and it qualified for the tax credit. It just recently went up $5,000, and a lot of people have speculated that's because a refresh is on the way, which is very possible. So they're discouraging people from ordering too many. That has changed and actually helped a little bit in the math here, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still, even then, a big difference. I bought this car for $99,990 plus $1,500 for black, $5,500 for the 22-inch wheels, $6,500 for the 6-seat option, and it came standard with the yoke at the time. Total price was $113,490, $1,390 destination fee, $250 order fee, plus it had a $5,670 discount because it was in inventory, $109,460. That's what I paid 2 years ago when I purchased this. That same car today, because options have changed and prices, check this out. The same car starts at $84,990, $1,500 for black still, $5,500 for the 22-inch wheels still, $6,500 for the 6-seat option still, plus $1,000 for the yoke. That brings us to $99,490 plus a $1,390 destination fee, $250 order fee, $101,130. That's $14,000, and that is before considering the tax credit that it was qualified for previously. You see, even now, Tesla will give you a free paid option if you purchase full self-driving. At the time I purchased this, full self-driving was $15,000. It's now $8,000. And by spending that $8,000, you could get the 6-seat configuration and still be tax credit eligible. So you could get this basic car with the base wheels, the base color, but a 6-seat interior, buy FSD and be tax credit eligible, meaning another $7,500 off. And it just absolutely destroys the value of this car that we purchased a couple of years ago. Coming full circle here at today's price, $84,990, is it worth it? Well, of course not. It was just $5,000 cheaper a month ago, and that $5,000 gave you another $7,500 off. So right now is not a great time to buy this car, unless, of course, you don't qualify for the tax credit. Anyways, you might be able to then find something in inventory that has a bit of a discount that could give you some good value. Now on to maintenance, and this is a topic where EVs absolutely shine, especially with Teslas. That said, this Model X is way more complex than the Tesla Model Y, the Model 3, meaning it has a lot more moving parts, a lot more electronics on board, and a lot more fail points than the Model Y and Model 3. While our Model Y has been absolutely bulletproof, this car has a lot more opportunity for things to fail, and some things have failed. Right at the beginning, we had a number of things that popped up that we ultimately had fixed, free under warranty, of course, but we had a ton of rattles on the Falcon doors. Those have since been resolved. The front seat had this terrible squeak. They had to replace the entire front seat at the beginning, and we had this terrible wobble. The wheels were not properly balanced, and the alignment needed to be adjusted. Those things were all handled at the beginning. In that first 6 months, we also had a number of issues with the sensors, with the cameras. Understand, this car shipped without many of the features activated with vision only. This was the first model year to go vision only for Model X, and they shipped it without having the software prepared for vision only. So a number of things were an issue, and we had a number of glitches, so to speak, on the display where things wouldn't work properly. That all has been fixed with software, but it took a solid year for all of that to really be cleaned up. Now, there's only one additional thing that has happened, and that is finally the yoke failed, which is something that is common with the refresh. The first generation of the yoke had an issue where it would start peeling, and ours finally started peeling enough that we did get it replaced just 1 month ago. Again, under warranty. We have spent $0 out of pocket for any of these maintenance items. Outside of that, we have spent probably $10 in washer fluid. I haven't replaced the wiper blades yet, but that's it. That is all the maintenance we've done in this 30,000 miles, which is pretty insane. That is the same story we've had with our other Teslas, but this bigger, more complex Tesla, we haven't even had to change the tires yet. They've been wearing very well at 30,000 miles. Bringing this full circle, here are the things that have been absolutely great about this car. This car in general hasn't really had a bunch of signs of wear. When you look around the inside of this car, the seats aren't all buckled in, the trim on the doors still looks new. Everything is held up exceptionally well, except for the yoke, which had a design issue and was replaced with a new design. The performance on this car cannot be understated. It's super fast. It's ridiculously fast for how heavy this car is. It has no right to be able to accelerate the way that it does. And this is not even the plaid version. 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds is lightning fast. And there is little to no car that you will run into on the road in a normal day that will be faster than you. It is way more power than you would ever need. And it's pretty awesome. But the suspension itself is also really awesome. It can do a lot of really cool things with launch mode. It can set itself up for better traction, but it can also glide, make this thing drive so smooth, even with these 22-inch wheels. Now, this car does have hardware 4. It's one of the first vehicles to have hardware 4. And now hardware 4 is awesome. When we got this car, it was terrible because there was so many things that didn't work on this car. Now all of that has since been resolved and hardware 4 is great. In a Model Y going to hardware 4, in a Model X going to hardware 4, it just performs better. It's smoother, it's more natural in autopilot, in full self-driving. Hardware 4 is definitely a step up. And when you're on these road trips using full self-driving, it brings us to our next point, which is charging speed. Now, since this car has launched, we've had a number of new vehicles hit the market showing impressive charging speed. So today, this car charges, I would say, at the higher end of acceptable. It's a great charging vehicle. It's a great road tripping vehicle. For about 25, 30 minutes, you'll drive about 2 or 3 hours, charge for 20 to 30 minutes, drive for about 2 to 3 hours, charge for 20 to 30 minutes. The charging is really good, especially at the bottom half of the pack. Just like all Teslas though, it does taper, and once you get above 50, 60, 70%, it starts to become painful to charge, just like any other Tesla. So road tripping in this vehicle, because it can go longer per percent than say our Model Y, actually pretty enjoyable to drive. That charging performance is really good. It's very reliable, and I get the same experience at all the V3 superchargers across the US. The 6-passenger configuration in the Model X is without a doubt one of the best features of this car. Bringing in the size of this car, 6-seat configuration, this car is made perfectly for families. Now, it is on the tighter side for a full family, but it is very comfortable on the inside, and that 6-seat means you have captain's chairs in the middle, which a lot of cars right now are lacking in the EV space. So it's one of the few cars you can get with 6-seat configuration, have the most amount of space on the inside and comfort for all the passengers. That is definitely the way to go with a Model X. Either get the 5-seat if you don't need a third row, or the 6-seat. I would not recommend the 7-passenger, although I suppose for the right deal, it could be worth it. But the 5-passenger is just fine, but the 6-passenger is definitely superior. This car has a number of features that are very nice, like cooled seats. The screen itself tilts. We have a huge frunk in the front, huge sub trunk in the back, plenty of power for everybody. It is, in my opinion, lacking on some cup holders, but for a family vehicle, it's minimally acceptable. We need a couple more cup holders, to be honest with you. And in fact, we need a bigger SUV, because here in America, the Tahoe suburban sized vehicle reigns supreme. And I really hope that Tesla is working on that now, because the Model Y, although it's great, the sloped top of this vehicle means the inside does get a little bit cramped for spec vehicle. And all those wonderful things said, there's actually some cons here. And some of these are actually really bad. So let's talk through some of the pain points I have with this vehicle. Of course, I have to start with talking about the price. Depreciation on this thing, something like 50%. In 2 years, 30,000 miles. That's how much I'm going to lose on this car when I sell this, possibly tomorrow. That is huge. Although all cars depreciate, although all luxury cars depreciate faster than standard cars, 50% in 2 years is insane depreciation. That hurts a lot. And I have nobody to blame but myself, but I just could not see another $20,000 in price reductions coming after an initial $20,000 reduction. That hurt a lot. When I first got this car, there were a number of squeaks and rattles and things that needed to be addressed. The good thing is it wasn't in any of the trim, like loose trim, bad plastic trim. A lot of that stuff is great in this car, but it was the Falcon doors. They took a lot of work to get them just right where they wouldn't rattle anymore. And then of course, the driver's seat, for whatever reason, that squeak could not get fixed. but that had to just completely be replaced. The paint itself was substandard, in my opinion, especially for a $100,000 car. There's some actual pieces of dust and lint in the paint underneath that top layer. It's in the paint, it's there forever, because the only remedy is to completely strip it down and repaint. And we're not going to deal with that. Not with this car, no way. When we took delivery of this car, it was really annoying to have hardware for with vision only. The first time they don't have ultrasonic sensors, and so many features for so long were just completely shut off with no line of sight to any of that being fixed or rolled out. It's since been addressed, which is great, but it's things like that that you get with Tesla that you wouldn't normally get. They just delay a product, which I guess isn't so great either, but that is really annoying. $100,000, and most of the features on the car didn't even work for 6 months. There's another thing on the horizon that is clear as day, and that is innovation. This car just had a $5,000 increase, and I believe it's because there's a redesign on the horizon. And that just goes back to this idea that technology is improving so fast. And just a couple of years later, this car is going to be obsolete because the new one is going to have even better features. It's probably going to charge better. It very well could come with a 48-volt architecture, which would be awesome. But there's a lot of new features that are going to come in the next generation that's probably going to make it very compelling versus this car. That does hurt your resale value. That does hurt your depreciation. And it's a reminder that when you step into these bigger, more expensive vehicles, leasing might be a better option, because at the end of 3 years or even 2 years, you're guaranteed to be able to get out of this vehicle and spend exactly what you know you're going to spend from the very beginning. One of the things that's a major con in this car for a lot of people was lack of stocks and the yoke steering wheel. No steering wheel was available. It did not have shifting stocks. Everything was all on the steering wheel. Additionally, the horn itself was a button rather than right in the middle where you naturally go to hit the horn. The redesign fortunately has brought that horn back, and all Teslas have brought that horn back where it belongs, thankfully, but the turn signals on the yoke are still a pain point for some consumers. So much so that Tesla has actually brought the turn signal stock back for the refresh Model Y. So even they understand their customers weren't pleased with that. Now, the gear shifter being on the screen, consumers have gotten so used to having those shifting knobs or dials or buttons moved all over the place. It's a lot easier for them to get over not having an actual gear shifter right there by the steering wheel. But the turn signals, that is still a pain point for a lot of people. And I personally think it's a con because it's hard to bring new customers in if they won't even consider it with that one thing being an issue. Hopefully the refresh will come with that turn signal. The other thing is it's very expensive compared to the Model Y. Of course, it's a bigger car. It does have a lot more features. It's more comfortable, has air suspension, a number of really awesome things, but the refresh Model Y is pretty comfortable. It drives really smooth. It also has that screen in the back like this one does. It's bringing a lot of features and closing that gap in the difference between this car and the Model Y. And that's a problem because this car, again, I argue is going to be redesigned here very soon and come with a lot of new features to help keep it separated from the Model Y. That gap is continuing to close, and the price difference is huge between the two already. So are you really getting that premium for the extra cost? Well, now that it's not tax credit eligible, I would say probably not. And the refresh Model Y being right here, there's a ton of really awesome features to love about it. That doesn't help the case here. In general speaking, this is a lot of money for a car. So if writing a check for that kind of money doesn't matter, then yeah, it's probably worth it. I'd probably push you towards the Plaid, because what's the fastest SUV in the world worth? I don't know. Probably what they're asking for it, you know? It's an amazing car, super fast, insane fast. Performance we never should have had in an SUV, and you can get it tomorrow at your local service center. That is pretty cool, but it is still very expensive. It doesn't just stop at the price though. Its insurance is more expensive. This car is almost double to insure versus our Model Y. The tires on it are more expensive. The maintenance on it in general would technically be more expensive once we're out of warranty. So it's a more costly vehicle, and it's something you really got to think about if you're kind of in that Tesla stretch considering the Model X, because it is going to cost you a bit more to operate this vehicle. And it all brings us to the one question: is the Model X worth it? Kind of hard to say. And that's because I've taken an absolute bath on the value of this vehicle. So I'm trying to keep that separate, but understanding that if you bought one today, $20,000 cheaper, $14,000 cheaper than I did, you're still looking at a very big headwind in front of you. A redesign coming is going to absolutely shake the value of this car even more. It's going to take another huge step down. That is something that's probably not ideal. This is where leasing probably makes a lot of sense with this car. Additionally, it's no longer tax credit eligible, and that is a big ding against the car. Now, if you lease this vehicle, it becomes tax credit eligible, and they just roll that into the lease of the vehicle. You don't actually get that yourself, but you do see it in the payments being reduced. That's a nice thing, but not being tax credit eligible means getting a base model, you can't get that tax credit. It makes it $7,500 more expensive right off the bat, plus the $5,000 additional. So it is a pretty big jump in cost. This car is very complex, and thinking of long-term ownership, there are a number of things that can go wrong with this vehicle. We've been very fortunate after the beginning, getting through some of the gremlins of this car. We've been trouble-free. This car has needed nothing, which is great, but it doesn't change the fact that unnecessarily complex systems are in this car, like the Falcon wing doors, which I understand is a piece of the design ethos of this car, but it's so complex for a door. And that's kind of the issue here when you're thinking long term of ownership. But the size of this car is great. The comfort of this car is great. The actual build quality on this car is great. It has been a fantastic car for us. My wife is very upset with me that we're selling it. To begin with, she absolutely adores this car, and it's pretty obvious to see why. Excluding money, this is an amazing car, especially if you splurge and get the Plaid. But if you do consider money, I don't know that this is the best value on the market today. And with that, if money's not an issue, highly recommend considering the Tesla Model X. If this is a stretch, I don't think that this is the right car for you. The Model Y is a better car for the money, hands down. This has great size, but it still lacks in total size compared to the competition. The R1S actually has a much more comfortable interior for multiple passengers beyond just 4 people. This car has a lot of work to do to bring the next generation of the Model X to the market to make it more compelling than all the new entrants we've had since we purchased this. And that is my summary on, is this car worth it? I thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this overview was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this. Can't wait to catch you on the next one.